And today I'm working at the SRN Medical Unit 4, and today we are here to discuss about the a disease which is very common, known as systemic lupus erythematosus. Its clinical features, diagnosis and management. So let's begin. So basically, systemic lupus erythematosus, sometimes we usually call it as SLE. It is actually an inflammatory autoimmune disorder which is characterized by formation of autoantibodies to nuclear antigens in a person. That means the antibodies started acting against their own self in various parts of the body. It usually affects almost all the organs in the body. Many of its clinical manifestations are usually secondary to deposition of the complexes which is formed by the antigen-antibody association in various parts of the body, including capillaries of visceral structures, or sometimes it is because of the antibody-mediated destruction of the host cell. In simple words, you can say the immune system of any person started acting against their own cell. It occurs mainly in young women. The most common clinical manifestation could be rash over the body, especially the sun-exposed areas. Second, there would be involvement of the joint, leading to pain in 90% of the patients. It also affects the blood, causing the symptoms of anemia, leukopenia, which can manifest as having opportunistic infections and decreased platelet count, that is thrombocytopenia. As a result, patient might have bleeding from any side. They may have bruises, they may have purpuras or petechias. Glomerulonephritis, that is the involvement of inflammation of the glomeruli in the kidneys, central nervous system disease, and some of the complications of the systemic lupus erythematosus, in which there is formation of blood clots in the different parts of the bodies as a result of specific antibodies known as antiphospholipid antibody, are major source of morbidity in patients who are having SLE. What you will find in the blood, usually there are increase in the levels of some, there are positive antibodies testing, which are specific to systemic lupus erythematosus, including anti-nuclear antibodies, anti-double-stranded antibodies, and the complement levels, which are usually markers of immunity in any individual. They are usually can be low in patients who are having this disease, especially if the disease is very active. So let's begin with the clinical finding. As I mentioned, it is a disease which affects almost all the organs of the body. It is actually not limited to any one organ. So you can find any system to be involved. And you have to think about systemic lupus erythematosus when there is involvement of more than one organ. For example, the patient is having involvement of the skin, patient is having involvement of joint, patient is having involvement of heart. You have to think of SLE. If the patient is having only involvement of heart in young female, you have to think of SLE. Or if the patient is having involvement of central nervous system in a young female, which is not specific to any other disease, you have to think of SLE. So what I meant to say is that there are a variety of presentation which can come under the umbrella of systemic lupus erythematosus. General symptoms which you can get in patients who are having SLE, usually patient might have fever, which is not related to any underlying infection, or you won't find anything any symptoms suggesting any underlying infection. Then you may have simply patient feel anorexic, there is loss of appetite, patient might complain of feeling lethargy and malaise, and there may be weight loss that may be documented. Patient said, I have lost such an amount of weight loss. Or it may be undocumented that patient is generally saying, I'm feeling that I'm losing weight, but I didn't measure it. These are the symptoms which are not specific to SLE or any other disease, but you can get generally. Then, as I mentioned, it involves almost all the organs of the body. So, in each organ, we will discuss what symptoms patient might have. Talking about the skin, symptoms and signs both. What the complaint patient is giving and what we are getting on the physical examination. The skin is one of the most common organ to be involved in systemic lupus erythematosus, and patient might have rash. The rash may be simply a butterfly rash, which is a rash on the malar, on the cheeks. That is also called as malar rash. There may be panniculitis. Panniculitis, actually, there are raised skin lesions on different parts of the body, pinkish lesions which are painful in different parts of the body. I'll show you the picture. And there may be your typical finger tip lesions, periangle erythema, nail fold infarcts you can get, and you may get splinter hemorrhages in the black lines in the small black lines in the nails. There may be alopecia of a different type. There may be a generalized alopecia, or there may be localized alopecia. There may be associated scarring of the skin, or there may not be. Then there is Raynaud's phenomena. Raynaud's phenomena, in which there is discoloration of the fingers or hands on exposure to the cold, in which there is a three stages in which first the fingers get pink, then they get white, and finally they get blue. These are the findings that you can get in the skin if you are suspecting systemic lupus erythematosus. Then we have joint. Symptoms are often the earliest manifestation as pain. Joint symptoms. The second most common, first one is the skin, and the second most common system involved is musculoskeletal. Patients usually have joint pain. There may be joint inflammation of the joints, which are tender to touch, but the joint which are swollen does not lead to permanent deformity. They usually call deformities of the joints which are reversible. That means they are correctable. It doesn't lead to full-fledged irreversible joint deformities like in case of rheumatoid arthritis. It is a very common mimicker of rheumatoid arthritis, and in that case we usually call it a Jacquard arthropathy, but it is reversible, in which you get all the deformities like swan neck deformity, Boutonniere deformity, Z deformity, but all of these deformities are correctable by simply patient's active movements and passive movements. Here you can see this one is a malar rash, the first picture of a girl showing the malar rash on the face. Second picture showing alopecia, which is a non-scarring alopecia in which there is no scarring of the skin. This third picture on the upper side shows lupus profundus or panniculitis, in which there is actually the inflammation of the capillaries, including the skin, leading to the formation of this pinkish palpable rashes over the different part of the skin. It can be over the legs, it can be over the arms, anyway. And this one shows the nail fold infarcts, this picture, and this is the Raynaud's, in which there is discoloration of the skin, of the fingers, and it's turned up to be white, right? So next is as far as up till now we have discussed the involvement of the skin, then we have discussed the involvement of the joint, and now we will discuss the involvement of the eye. In the eye, there is involvement of, usually there is involvement of the first and second layer of the eye, including sclera or conjunctiva, leading to a dry eye, in which there is dryness of the eye, leading to keratitis and conjunctivitis, right? But as systemic lupus erythematosus can involve the blood channels as well, so it may lead to retinal involvement as well, which is rare. Then in the chest, what it affects in the chest? In the chest, the most common, it usually called clinical symptoms of chest pain or of dry cough. And the cause for this would be either a pleurisy, in which there is inflammation of the pleura, visual pleura, or there may be collection of the fluid inside the pleural cavity, because it is one of the well-known cause of serositis, in which there is collection and inflammation of the serous cavities, leading to collection of the fluids inside the pleural cavity, inside the pericardium, inside the peritoneal cavity. In the heart, in the kidney, the two most lethal systems which can affect in the SLE and may make its prognosis poor and worse is the kidney. One is the kidney, and second one is the neurological system, central nervous system. So talking about the kidney, there are clinical features, symptoms. Usually patient might manifest as frothy urine because of excessive loss of protein in the urine. And patient said, I used to have a bubble soap urine or frothy urine early in the morning. Sometimes there may be blood in the urine, which can be easily visible to the patient. Or you can get the, if patient is not having a gross blood loss in urine, there may be microscopic hematuria, which you will get when you go for a urine detailed report under microscope. Or if it is a severe disease, or disease is very active, in both the cases you may get the features of renal failure in the form of decreased urine output. Then comes the hematological manifestations. In the blood, we can get anemia. Now, anemia can be of two types. Anemia can be occur as a result of disease, chronic disease, which is anemia of chronic disease, or it may occur as a result of the disease pathophysiology itself, in which there are formations of antigen antibody complexes causing the destruction of the bone marrow, leading to aplastic anemia, or it may cause the destruction of the peripheral blood, red blood cells in the periphery, leading to hemolytic anemia. Second, it may cause leukopenia, again because of the involvement of the bone marrow. It may cause immune thrombocytopenia, either because of the formation of antibodies against the platelets, causing its destruction, or because of the involvement of the bone. And thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. This entity is slightly different in the term that it usually causes the antigen antibody complexes, leading to the destruction of thrombocytes, that is platelets, leading to the formation of the purpuras all over the body. And it may also be manifest as anemia, hemolytic anemia. It's actually a pentad in which there are 5 things. You may get thrombocytopenia, you may get fever, there may be involvement of the kidneys leading in the form of hematuria, and there may be involvement of the central nervous system leading to psychosis or fits or like this. Then Next is, this is the keratoconjunctivitis sicca, that is the dry eye in which there is inflammation of the sclera and conjunctiva. And this is the pitical rash all over the body because of the immune-mediated thrombocytopenia as a result of SLE. How it may affect the heart. In the heart, it usually causes inflammation of the pericardium leading to pericarditis and ultimately pericardial effusion. Because it is a disease which affects the blood channels as well, it may also affect the atherosclerotic disease progression leading to hypertension, either because of the heart or because of the kidney involvement. It may also cause the affect the myocardium of the heart, leading to myocarditis, which ultimately may turn up into heart failure. There may be cardiac arrhythmias in which there is a rhythm disturbance. And very rare finding which you can get in SLE is the a form of infective endocarditis, in which there is a deposition of the vegetations or foreign material over the lining of the walls. Antigen antibody complexes basically get deposited on the lining of the walls. And in SLE particularly, we usually named it as a Limban sac endocarditis. It is usually silent, but sometimes it may produce acute or chronic valvular regurgitation. And the most commonly involved valve is mitral valve. Right? Then comes the central nervous system involvement. The central nervous system involvement in case of SLE, it might be include, it has a variety of symptoms which can come under the cover of SLE. It may simply be a psychosis, there may be depression, there may be cognitive impairment, patient ability to have cognitive skills would be impaired. It may cause inflammation of the lining of the brain leading to meningitis. There may be seizures because of the involvement of the capillaries and blood channels of the brain. There may be cranial neuropathies, involvement of the cranial nerves, or peripheral neuropathy because of the involvement of the peripheral nerves. In the spinal cord, it may cause transverse myelitis, that is the inflammation of the spinal cord, causing the symptoms of either weakness in any part of the body, along with the sensory impairment. And it may also cause a stroke. And the underlying pathophysiology for all these symptoms are actually the deposition of antigen antibody complexes in the blood channels, in the organ itself, right? It is actually one of the hypersensitivity reaction type 3, in which there are deposition of the complexes in different parts of the body. Then there are some very specific particular definitions which should be we should know, which we actually know whenever we are talking about systemic lupus erythematosus. So first of all, what is ANA? ANA, as I just briefly mentioned in the very early slide, that it actually this is an antibody which you usually get in a patient whom we are suspecting that he or she might have an SLE. Fever should be present when it is more than 38.3 degrees C. Leukopenia we will mention when the white blood cell count in the complete blood picture would be less than 4,000. Thrombocytopenia would be, we will say, when the platelet count is less than 1 lakh. When we say it is an autoimmune hemolysis, then in cases First of all, when the markers of the hemolysis would be raised and the markers of autoimmunity. So what we will get? There would be hemolysis in which the RBC are hemolyzing in the form of reticulocytosis. Whenever there is hemolysis, the bone marrow starts producing more and more reticulocytes in the peripheral film to compensate for the hemolysis. There would be low haptoglobin, which is actually a precursor needed for the hemolyzed cells to utilize the iron. When there is excessive hemolysis, the haptoglobin would be low. There would be elevated indirect bilirubin, which is actually a marker of hemolysis, which is normally not raised. And there would be increased lactate dehydrogenase enzyme, which is also a marker of hemolysis released from the lymph blood cells. And the marker of autoimmunity, to prove that this hemolysis is because of the antigen-antibody complexes, we will get a Coombs test positive, that in which we usually take the blood sample of the patient and give antiserums, inject on the blood, and there is the formation of antibody complexes and agglutination complexes, like what we did when we check for the blood testing, blood grouping. Right? Delirium. Delirium is one of the manifestations as a part of central nervous system. And when we will label a patient that he or she is having a delirium, when there is change in the consciousness or level of arousal with reduced ability to focus, when the symptoms development occur over less than 2 days, and they are fluctuating throughout the days, either it is acute or subacute changes in the cognition, that means the patient is having a memory problem, patient seems to be disoriented, there is change in the behavior of the patient found to be aggressive, restless, or simply there may be reversal of sleep cycle. Patient is sleepy most of the day and he is waking in the night. How will you define the psychosis in case of SL? It is characterized by the delusions or hallucinations, or both, without any insight and absence of insight. There would be no insight. Seizures, primarily generalized seizures or partial or focal. Usually we get generalized seizures, but sometimes because it may cause stroke, focal lesion are also common. So is the case with the focal fits. Non-scarring alopecia, as I've shown you in the pictures, they may be oral ulcers. These are actually basically signs which you can get. Patient simply would say that I'm having hair loss, but you will see it on examination that whether the patient is having alopecia, which is a scarring or not a scarring. So basically it is a sign. So is the case with the ulcer. Patient will say I am having soreness in my mouth, and you will see that there are ulceration in the oral cavity. Subacute cutaneous or discoid lupus, which there is actually a variety in the skin. There are variety of the lesions that can come under the cover of SLE, but you need to remember only the most common one. The cutaneous lupus, in which there is papillosquamous cutaneous eruptions, usually in the photo-distributed sun-exposed areas. And you can confirm it on biopsy, which you don't need to remember. Then discoid lupus, in which there is erytheromatous violaceous, the purplish and the blood-filled capillaries. Cutaneous lesions can be there, and they may be atrophy, scarring, depigmentation. There are areas of hyperpigmentation and hypopigmentation you can get. And in this case, whenever you have this type of skin involvement, this squared lupus, you may have scarring alopecia. So the take-home message is that in cases of subacute cutaneous lupus, there are less chances that there would be a permanent skin deformity, which is not the case in case of discoid lupus. In discoid lupus, you will get a hyperpigmentation, a hypopigmentation, then you will get the scarring alopecia, and then you can get different, there may be keratosis, dryness of the skin on some parts, right? Then we have acute cutaneous lesion. Patient is coming with the very acute presentation. In this case, we have a malar rash, as I showed you in the picture, or maybe there is simply a diffuse rash all over the body, maculopapular rash, which is not palpable. Whenever we are saying it's a maculopapular rash, which means it's not palpable. Then in the pleural or pericardial effusion, we usually won't justify the finding if the patient is saying, you cannot think of pericardial effusion or pleural effusion just on the basis if the patient is saying I'm having chest pain or I'm having heart pain. But if on examination you are getting a finding of a pleural effusion, having a dullness on any other side, you are getting decreased air and you are absent air and you are having decreased vocal resonance, then you will suspect that this patient is having a pleural effusion. Or in case of pericardial effusion, you are getting a soft or muffled heart sound, you are having the distant heart sounds, you are having low blood pressure, patient is having, may or may not be having a rub, pericardial rub. You can suspect in that case, but ultimately you will, for confirmation, you need to go for the radiology help in the form of ultrasounds, echocardiography, CT and MRI, and finally you might need the tapping of that effusion to draw the fluid. But when you will label a patient is having a pericarditis, basically these are the definition which based on the finding of the clinical features, symptoms, signs and laboratory. So you will get the patient is usually complain of a typical sharp chest pain, and characteristic of pericarditis pain is that it usually bursts with inspiration and improve with leaning forward. Right? That is the typical of the pain, which will help you differentiate it from the chest pain because of any ischemia. On examination, you will find a pericardial rub, you will find an absent heart sound or the muffled heart sound if there is effusion coexisting. But for pericarditis, you will find a rub because it's simply an inflamed pericardium which is rubbing with the parietal pericardium and producing the friction rub. In the lab, you will get on ECG, you will get first of all, you will simply get a wide spread. A wide spread means you will get ST elevation, which was not present in the previous ECG. You will compare it, but you will get a ST elevation in all the ECG leads, including limb leads and chest leads. That means the reason, the logic behind is that the ST elevation in all the leads mean that it is not signifying any ischemic lesion, or if there is ischemia to any particular part of the heart, anterior, posterior, lateral, then you will get the localized ST elevation. Second finding, which you can get on ECG, would be a PR depression, right? Again, that would be in all the leads. New and worsened pericardial effusion on imaging. If it is coexisting, there is effusion, then you can get the effusion on echocardiography, CT or MRI. The joint involvement, there is presence of either synovitis, that is the inflammation of the lining of the joints, which involve two or more joints characterized by swelling effusion, and they are tenderness. They are tender to touch. Patient would say, I feel pain when I used to touch my joints, and they are, the patient will complain of pain and stiffness in the joints, especially early in the morning, but it should be less than 30 minutes. If it is more than 1 hour or 2 hours, you have to think of some other causes, like rheumatoid arthritis. When we are saying that SLE is involving the kidney, and in kidney we will get the earliest finding, we might complain simply of the frothy urine, that they are having soap bubble urine early in the morning. That means the patient is losing protein in the urine, and in urine, if we go for a detailed report under microscopy, when we label that patient is having a proteinuria, loss of protein in the urine, then it should be 0.5 gram per 24 hours. We have to basically collect the urine for 24 hours, and then we will have to send the protein levels in the urine, 24-hour protein levels. Or sometimes there is a specific test, that is protein to creatinine ratio, which is a spot test. You simply go for on one sample, which also help us to quantify the total protein loss. In kidney, there are 6 types by which SLE can involve. But you need to remember the type which are most common. Number 1 is type 2, in which there is mesangial proliferative lupus nephritis, in which there is mesangial hypercellularity. There is increase in the cellular component of the mesangium. Under light microscopy, there may be some epithelial or some endothelial deposits. This is basically a biopsy finding. But on clinical ground, all the types, including 2, 4, 1, 2, they usually have similar symptoms, but the severity would be different. If we are talking about the 1 and 2 are the lesser severe form, the minor, and the 5 and 6 would be are the more severe and ultimately leading up to the end stage renal disease. Then is what is this antiphospholipid antibody syndrome? These are the very specific antibodies which sometimes might be associated with systemic lupus erythematosus, or in other cases they may not be associated with SLE. But whenever they are positive, and they are usually positive if a female having SLE, and there are some specific antibody panels which come under the cover of antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. So this is anticardiolipin antibody, which could be IgA, IgG, or IgM. It could be anti-glycoprotein antibodies, GP1, or third one is lupus anticoagulant, positive lupus antibody. When you will suspect a patient is having antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, you will suspect a patient with who is having antiphospholipid antibody syndrome if there are formation of blood clots in any parts of body. If the patient is having a thrombosis in the vein, if the patient is having a thrombosis in any artery, if the patient is having thrombosis in the coronary arteries leading to ischemic heart disease in a very young girl without any cause. If a patient is having a thrombosis in the central nervous system artery leading to the stroke in a very young individual, not explainable to any other cause. Or if a patient is having thrombosis in any part of the body without any other cause, you will think that, and in female, if there are recurrent abortions or miscarriages. So whenever you are finding such symptoms, you have to think of antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. And in addition, if you are getting a skin finding, you are having joint pain, patient is having a joint pain, patient is having proteinuria, then this will signify that this antiphospholipid antibody syndrome might be because of SLE. You have to check the antibody levels for both the diseases. Then, as I mentioned, the complement levels would be low because they are being utilized in the formation of antigen antibody complexes, which are attacking the patient's own multi-organs, leading to decrease in their levels in the blood. And whenever the level, as low as the level would be, it signifies that the disease is active that much. If the levels are borderline low, that means the disease is not very active at the moment. And if the levels are severely low, that means the disease is very active, and there are very high chances that patient might have any involvement of any organ at any time. Then anti-dsDNA, anti-double-stranded DNA antibodies or anti-Smith antibodies, these are basically specific antibodies for SLE. We usually get with more than 90% specificity for SLE, right? How you will diagnose that patient is having SLE? For that you need a detailed good history from the very beginning, since the time patient was ill. One thing very important in case of systemic lupus erythematosus, that you may get a waxing and waning history. Patient may say I am actually ill for last 2 years, and then I get better, and then again I'm having problem, then I get better, and again I'm having problem. You may get such history. It's up to your approach, that how you are compiling that all those findings or those symptoms. So it is very important. First of all, history. For something you may get a smooth history of 5 months or 6 months or 2 months or 1 month, whatever the duration of the disease would be. So it's up to you how you are compiling those symptoms. Once you have taken all the detailed history, then you have to go for the examination. As I mentioned, that SLE involves almost all the organs of the body. The first system you will examine would be a general physical examination. You have to look the skin, you have to look the hairs, you have to look the nails, you have to look for the joints of all over the body. Then you have to look each and every system. But before that, you have to examine the primary system involved. Because sometimes there may be different findings. Patient is coming with patient is saying, I am having symptoms of anemia in the form of fatigability, dyspnea on exertion, I am having bruises all over my body, I am having fever because of leukopenia. That means the patient is having a meteorological environment. Then the primary system you will examine after the general physical examination, checking the lymph nodes and all that, and the local examination of the skin to look for all the bruises or particulars if the patient is having. Would be abdomen to look for any hepatosplenomegaly or lymph nodes anywhere in the body. Then you have to screen all the systems, because you may get any finding in other system as well. Basically, there is a criteria for SLE, just to make it more easy. You have actually a criteria in which there is classification. We usually say if a patient is having 4 of these 11 findings, you may label a patient as having SLE. It's actually a consolidation of clinical features, examination findings, and then lab findings. So if a person is able to remind all these findings, that means he is able to remind whole of the SLE. First one is malar rash on the cheeks. Then is the discoid rash, as I mentioned, photosensitivity rash, only on the sun exposed areas. Then we have arthritis, that means there would be inflammation and tender joints, 2 or more than 2. There would be a serositis, that means the patient is complaining of symptoms suggestive of chest, heart, or abdomen. There are three serous cavities, that is pericardium, pleural, and peritoneum. Then where there may be involvement of the kidneys. Now the kidney involvement you will label not only based on the symptoms of frothy urine or hematuria or decreased urine. You have to go for the urine detail report to look quantify the loss of protein in urine and to look for microscopic hematuria, red blood cell cast. Then in CNS, we have both. You have clinical criteria including seizures and psychosis. The blood, we will label, we will find on the laboratory finding that if there is hemolytic anemia, based on the findings of, as I mentioned, there would be a reticulocytosis, there would be an increased liver lactate dehydrogenase, there would be a decrease in the urinary haptoglobins, and leukopenia, as I mentioned, less than 4,000 WBC count, and lymphopenia is also specific when their lymphocyte count is less than 1,500. And thrombocytopenia when the platelet count is less than 1 lakh. Immunological, when the patient is having, these are very specific antibodies. Antibody to the native DNA, that is antibody to anti-Smith antibody, and antibody to antiphospholipid antibodies, which are 3 types of antibodies: anticardiolipin, lupus anticoagulant, and third one is anti-glycoprotein. And then positive anti-neutrophilic antibodies. So basically, when you are getting a patient with clinical features, you have examined the patient now, and when you have find some findings in the labs, then you have to put all those findings of your patient in this diagnostic criteria, and to see whether your patient is meeting the criteria for diagnosing SLE or not. That would be easy. It is characterized by the production of many different autoantibodies, and if the disease is very active, as I mentioned, the disease usually comes in waxing and waning. Sometimes it's very active, causing different involvement in different parts of the body. Sometimes it's usually in remission. So in that case, how will you say that now the disease is very active? Based, first of all, clinical finding. The patient usually won't have any symptoms, but in the lab, there may be elevation in the ESR. Serum CRP is usually normal unless there is serositis or arthritis. And second important thing would be a complement level. If the complement levels are low, depending upon how severe they are low, they are actually tell us about the disease activity. Abnormality of urinary sediment, including hematuria with or without cast, proteinuria, can indicate active lupus nephritis. That means the disease is active in kidney. So how will you treat this patient? Most of the autoimmune diseases are usually being treated with immunosuppression. That means to suppress the immunity of the patient, which is acting against their own. How will you suppress that? We have a list of medications. Since the various manifestations of SLE affects the prognosis differently, as I mentioned, if the SLE is affecting the kidneys or CNS or the heart, the disease prognosis would be poor. If the disease is restricted to the skin or the joints, the prognosis is good. And SLE activity always waxes and wanes. It comes and goes. It may have active relapse for months, and then it may undergo remission for many months. Patient should be cautioned against sun exposure. If the skin involvement, you usually have to say that that you have to apply the sunscreen before going to the sunlight. You have to wear light color clothes to avoid the absorption of the light sun while outdoors. Skin involvement and the joint involvement when there is the anti-malaria hydroxychloroquine is very helpful. Then we are talking about immunosuppression. In the immunosuppression, the well-known medication we have very active and good results are steroids, corticosteroids. They are required for the control of certain complications, including kidney involvement, hemolytic anemias, myocarditis. In cases if it is causing chest involvement in the form of hemorrhages in the chest leading to hemoptysis, if there is central nervous system involvement, if there is severe thrombocytopenia. These are specific indications of steroids in case of SLE. Then once we have treated the active disease, we can switch on to some other immunosuppressive agent to avoid the side effects of the steroids. In that case, we have cyclophosphamide, we have mycophenolate mofetil, we have azathioprine, we have methotrexate or tacrolimus for long-term disease control. They all have their own side effects, and you have to monitor the patient for the side effects. For in case the well-known side effect of all the immunosuppression, patient might have opportunistic infections. In case of azathioprine, patient may have worsening of anemia because it may cause folic acid deficiency, and methotrexate as well. In case of cyclophosphamide, there may be hematuria because it usually sometimes it may cause opportunistic infections. And tacrolimus may cause hypertension, metabolic syndrome. So you have, and they may also cause neuropathy. A new drug, which is belimumab, is actually a monoclonal antibody. Monoclonal antibodies, basically these are the antibodies preparations which are currently being used very efficiently in various diseases, including autoimmune and even some cancers as well, which inhibits the activity of B cell growth factors responsible for producing antibodies for treating antibody positive SLE patients with active disease who have not responding to the standard therapies. And the standard therapies are, we have NSAIDs for pain, antimalarial, hydroxychloroquine, or immunosuppressive therapy, as we have discussed already. Rituximab is usually reserved for life-threatening life-threatening disease or organ-threatening manifestation that have failed to all those above-mentioned therapies, which is also anti-CD20 medicine. How you will check the disease course and prognosis? Usually the 10-year survival rate exceeds 85% in most of the patients with SLE. The illness pursued are relapsing and remitting course. That means it comes and goes. It lasts active for months, then it remains suppressed for hibernate for a couple of months. But the cause for mortality in SLE usually have a bimodal presentation. What do you mean by bimodal presentation? That means in the early years after the diagnosis of the disease, infection are the most common cause, and the infections usually are the opportunistic, followed by the disease activity itself. If the patient is presenting with the active SLE with kidney involvement in early disease or because of CNS, there are very high chances that mortality they may have mortality. While if the disease is a chronic disease, in later years, accelerated atherosclerosis because of the chronic inflammation of the disease is major cause of death, and usually the most common cause in the later part of the disease is cardiac, that is the heart. So this is all about the SLE. So the take-home message is that whenever you come across a patient who is having involvement of more than one organ, patient is having cough, patient is having anemia, patient is having bruises all over the body, you have to keep your mind open. You have to think about SLE always. And you have to take a thorough detailed history and examine the patient each and every system you should have an open-minded approach to approach that case rather than narrow down, making your list of differentials narrowed. You have to think in open mind that what are the possibilities could be. Once you are done with your history detailed examination, by the end of your examination, you might be able to read at some list of differentials. And then once you are done with your laboratory testing, then you will be able to narrow down your differentials and then treat them accordingly. Any question?
मैं एंड कर दूं क्लास?
सॉरी
मैम एंड कर दूं क्लास?
आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी मुझे।
मैम क्लास एंड कर दूं?
अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है तो कर दें।
मैम अभी तक तो कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है।
ठीक है, एंड कर दूं।